What's up, everyone? My name is Jason Brown, the king of programming, and I help online coaches write better programs. So my audience is largely online coaches, people that are looking to learn more about program design and how to incorporate both strength and conditioning in the same training plan and do it in a cohesive way. What we did was we asked our mailing list to submit some information of their ideal client. Now, I gave them some information as far as what I needed, but the whole goal is to help your clients write better programs. So if you're someone that writes programs, maybe you're an online coach or you're looking to be an online coach, you're gonna wanna stick around to watch this whole video because I'm gonna write a program today organically on this video, okay? And I've gone through this list already, but I haven't written anything yet. I have not put paper to pen, so to speak. So we're gonna do this together over the course of the next few minutes in this video. What we did was we asked people to submit their information, and I'm going through various submissions, and I'm gonna be writing programs for these people. Now, I did give some guidelines of things that I did need. If you're wondering why I asked for certain things, then I've got a lot of information on that in my website, in my podcast. So a lot of different places you can go to get some further information about that. But just to give you guys kind of a quick breakdown, I obviously need to know who this person is. I need to know what they do for work. And then I need to know things like their age, training age, their estimated body fat percentage, even things like their resting heart rate and where they're at as far as movements like a strict pull-up. And then one of the most important things for writing a training program is knowing the ideal training schedule. It might seem silly, like, oh yeah, like if someone trains 3 days a week, then we're just gonna put them in a full body split and they're gonna do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Yeah, that certainly makes sense. But a lot of times what I see happen is that people are prescribing a training split that is a mismatch for the client they're working with. And that happens far too often. And that's something we can easily avoid, knowing what the ideal training schedule is. So in this case, this person put training daily, which could mean a lot of things. And based on the fact that they're a firefighter, they likely have 24 on, 24 off. And actually you can see it listed here. 24 on, 24 off, 48 hours on, 48 hours off. And then they repeat that schedule. So it sounds like they're probably training while they're at work. Now, there are various things in here, things like their training history, what they've done, what they've had success with, and then some injury history. They reported nothing major, which someone at 36, may or may not having any nagging aches and pains. As we get older, we tend to have some of that stuff accumulate a little bit more. But overall, this is actually a pretty straightforward submission for me. This is pretty easy in terms of what direction I would go with this individual. They won't all come out like this. And other examples that I will do in the future will likely be a lot more gray area, so to speak, where we're not exactly sure what might be the best split for them. There are some things that we can use at our disposal to make better choices. But in this case, this is definitely going to be a little bit more straightforward. Now, even knowing what they have access to for equipment, they've got a well-equipped home gym, barbells, dumbbells, kettlebells, rack, rower, air bike. Obviously, I don't need to read all these off for you guys. And their main goal is to gain strength and maintain good conditioning for their job performance. All right, so let's talk about that. So we've got a resting heart rate of 60, which, albeit it's not bad, it could certainly be a little bit better. And if we look at some averages, if you were to type into Google right now just an average, what people's average resting heart rate is, for someone of this age range, 65 is somewhat average. You can look that up yourself. There's both for male and female, and you can get an idea where their average is at. Now, someone that is 36 years old and someone that is a firefighter, I would like to see that maybe be a little bit lower. Lower resting heart rate is going to allow them a little bit better ability to tolerate stress, which being a firefighter is definitely ups and downs. Worked with several firefighters over the years and people in law enforcement. Obviously, those are two different things, but we've got some similar demands in terms of what the job description is. So that is something we could certainly work on. What they are currently doing now is he has them focusing on full body strength sessions, 3 to 4 weekly, and then zone 2 conditioning sessions, 2 to 3 weekly. So 3 to 4, 2 to 3. So I would probably shift this balance a little bit. But this main goal here is to gain strength. So what I would do starting out, or at least for the next 12 weeks, is I would front load more strength emphasis. So if we move over here to our template, we've got a basic template of Monday through Sunday. And if we just lay this out in a very simplistic way, knowing that they train daily, we could do something as simple as saying lower strength. This is going to be aerobic, upper strength, aerobic, lower strength, first strength, and then this could be aerobic or active recovery. All right. I agree with this using a full body split, and I would go 3 days full body and I'd go 3 days aerobic conditioning. But because they want to gain strength, we could table that and we could shift the balance a little bit more towards strength for the next 12 weeks. Again, not something I would do forever, but something we could do in the short term to have a little bit more strength adaptation. So this is a very simplistic layout here. I didn't include any methods yet. We're going to get to that. So now that we know what we're doing on those days, and you could shift this however you want, as far as, you could make this on Tuesday, this on Thursday, so on and so forth. But just for simplicity's sake, knowing that they can train daily, I set it up this way because we have a little bit more recovery in between. So now that we know what we're going to do, so we're going to shift and make the emphasis on strength for 12 weeks. We can use methods like submaximal effort method. We could use mixed modality conditioning, submax. And this is basically, if we just make this very, very easy to understand, this is our heavy upper, this is heavy lower. The method we're going to use for cardiac or for aerobic is going to be cardiac output method, which for those of you who are not familiar, this is zone 2 cyclical work. I got plenty of information about that on my site. Go dynamic effort, lower. So this is our speed day, and we're going to go dynamic effort, upper, speed, and then we could do another cardiac output day. So again, 7-day schedule. Most people that you're working with probably are not going to have 7 days. I usually, when I work with coaches, the coaches I work with currently, and even some other coaches I worked with in the past, I almost always find that the 3 to 4 day a week is kind of the sweet spot for most of these people. When I polled them and asked them, what's the availability of your clients? Usually we're seeing like 3 to 4 days a week. So this is kind of an irregular thing, but someone that is able to train on their job, obviously that is going to allow them to have a little bit more availability to get those sessions in. Now that we know what we're doing, so I have a 5-step process. This is step number 1 and 2. 1 and 2 is figuring out what days a week they're training and what they're doing. Step 2 is inserting the methods. So now that we have the methods, we're going to plug in our exercise selection, and then we're going to plug in our sets, reps, and rest interval. And then step number 5 would be getting feedback. So after 4 weeks, usually at the 3-week mark of a 4-week block, I'm going to get feedback from the client. Hey, how are things going? What do you like? What don't you like? Is there anything that's not working? Is there anything that you absolutely love? Just some basic feedback so you know how to proceed moving forward. Just play devil's advocate here. You might run with this more of a strength bias for this particular client, and they might say, I hate it, or they might say it doesn't work with their job. Maybe they're not able to adhere to this training schedule. That's when we would likely make a shift. But I don't find that to be, if you do all your homework ahead of time, you get all the pertinent information, like I've listed here, you go through a process and you plug in the right methods for that client, then usually things play out pretty well. Now, another example here, this guy's got a high training age. So if he didn't, I might go with some simpler methods for my strength work. I might just do repeated effort method, which is, basically just getting them better motor patterns. It's allowing them to get a little bit more volume and get more repetition with foundational movement patterns so they can learn how to move better and then add load over time. So know that these are more advanced methods. Mixed modality conditioning, in case you're wondering what MM stand for, is a higher skill conditioning aerobic method. So it is a aerobic method that will include things like kettlebells, might include some complex work in conjunction with some cyclical work like rower or an air bike, which this guy has access to. And he's got actually a lot of great equipment, which is going to make our lives easier. All right, so now that we know the structure, let's plug in what we're going to do. If we're going to do sub-max effort, let's just say we're going with a front squat, and we're going to use cluster sets. That's our method. Our sub-maximal effort method is cluster sets. And then we're going to use a hinge variation, single leg. And let's see, does this guy have no cable system? Okay, so I don't see any like specialty equipment like a GHD or reverse hyper. We can certainly keep that in mind as far as what we're going to do as far as plugging in any specialty pieces. It says well equipped, but I would need some more information about that. Now, if you're working with a client, you'd want to know exactly what they have. Well-equipped home gym could mean a number of things. I've got people that have $100,000 home gyms. I've also got people that have $2,000 home gyms. So there could be a big difference in what they have there. But let's just assume with a well-equipped home gym that they have a reverse hyper. And then let's do a loaded carry here. Okay. Conditioning, we can do 5 rounds of and landmine thrusters, and we're going to get into the actual sets, reps, and rest intervals in a second. All right, so let's go with floor press, clusters, no cable system. Again, definitely want to get clarity on that, but we're going to assume that because there isn't a whole lot of clarity there, that what we're including here, things like the reverse hyper, are not going to be an issue. Now, I am putting in the root of these variations. You could go with a number of variations as far as foundational movement patterns. I am not one that goes too deep down the rabbit hole. I actually say that, and I want to take it back because I've got about 2,000 videos on my channel. Most of them at this point are unlisted, just demo videos, but I would keep it basic. I am assuming that, at this place writing this program, that there's not a whole lot that I know about how this person moves. So I am going to assume some things just based on the information that he told me. And then this guy, as far as our cardiac output, I would use a Turkish get-up as a great movement to unlock people that are sitting. Now, this guy is obviously a firefighter, but a lot of their time they're waiting, for calls. So I would assume there's probably a fair amount of sitting there. And once you have this in an app, once you create this, if you're delivering your programming in an app, which I would recommend you guys do, you are going to want to still use this process where we figure out what we're doing on what days, but you can go with step 3 and 4 and plug that right into your app. Really easy. This is going to make your life a lot easier once you know exactly what they're doing on what days. It's going to make it a lot easier for you to move forward. For the purposes of making this hopefully a little bit more, to facilitate the learning a little bit more, I'm putting in the routes. I am going to put in sets, reps, and rest intervals, but I want you guys to have some freedom here. For the guy that submitted this, you can use this and put your own spin on it. So maybe that, for this hinge variation, maybe he does have a glute ham raise and he wants to do some glute ham raise work, which is a phenomenal movement for really just about anyone that has a requisite level of strength. You could certainly plug that in there and have that play out really, really well. I want you guys to have some options here rather than being more fixed. This final day could be a repeat of what we did here. Maybe you deliver it a little bit different way in the sense that, they're doing 30 to 40 minutes of zone 2 work, but maybe you put a different spin on it. Now that we know what we're doing, we're going to plug in what we're doing as far as sets, reps, and rest intervals. So let's go for hinge 6 to 8. I typically will go on the heavier side with our hinge variations as an accessory movement. In this case, it's an accessory movement. If we were doing some type of deadlift variation, it would be an assistance movement. But let's just pretend that this is a glute ham raise, 6 to 8 reps. Hamstrings respond very well to lower rep sets. They have a lot of fast twitch muscle fiber. Single leg, I would keep pretty basic. 3 sets of 8 to 10 each. Reverse hyper, for most people, are going to do really well with high reps, but I'm going to assume that we're still working on that with this guy. So I'm going to go on a little bit lower end of the spectrum, 3 sets of 15 to 20. You can go all the way up to 100 total reps with a reverse hyper, especially as people get used to performing it. They have control of the pendulum, and that's how we do that. For this particular workout here, what we're going to do is we're going to go 30 on, 30 off after each exercise, and then 2 minutes rest after a full round. So 30 on, 30 off. This should be very sustainable. This is going to be a higher intensity aerobic method, but done in a sustainable fashion where it's an RPE of around 7.5 to 8. It's hard, but it's doable. It's not something that they feel like, they're going to hit the wall on. Shouldn't be like that at all. So all these weights, kettlebell clean, should be relatively light to moderate. Air bike sprint, not an all-out sprint. Battle rope, again, sustainable pace. Landmine thruster, which is a squat into a press using a landmine. Again, a load that they can tolerate doing 30 seconds straight for. And then after that full round, they'll rest a full 2 minutes. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And I might even include one more movement here because we got 20 minutes, do a loaded carry, or we could do another cyclical. He's got a ski erg. Let's do a ski erg. Awesome. And I actually forgot to put the reps on here. I want him to do a 2-2-1 with 15 seconds times 5 sets. And then I want you to rest 3 minutes between the heavier sets. So 2-2-1 is you do 2 reps, re-rack the weight, rest 15 seconds, 2 reps, re-rack the weight, 1 rep, and then rest a full 3 minutes, and you're adding weight. So I want him to build to a heavy load where 2 to 3 reps in the tank on that final single. And then what I would do, guys, is I would, over the course of say 3 to 4 weeks, I would have him remove reps in the tank. So reps in reserve. We're building that pattern. We're building load, and we are doing so in a way that he's getting comfortable, because week 1 is going to be kind of feeling things out and seeing how the movement goes and getting comfortable with the format. All of the programming should be that way. Now, what I tell people is what we want to do is we want to go towards the higher end of a rep scheme with our accessory exercises or add a little bit of load. But sometimes people are not feeling good. Sometimes on week 1 or week 2, they feel worse than they felt on week 1. So that's a case where we could potentially go with an even lighter load or the same load. Now, sometimes progression comes in the form of regression. We need to listen to the ebbs and flows of our body, but we don't necessarily need to add a ton more sets or reps each week for someone to get better. So just know that I put 8 to 10 reps, 10 to 12 reps, 12 to 15 reps. We build in some progression right there, and then we can instruct people to simply go up a little bit and load from week to week. Now, for our clusters, for our floor press, I want to use the same format. Again, this keeps it uniform. This keeps it in the sense that they're like, all right, I did clusters on Monday. I know the format. I'm going to apply that same format to our day 2 of strength training, okay? Pretty straightforward there. Row variation, and then an overhead press variation. I love the kettlebell. I love kettlebell presses, tall kneeling presses, landmine presses, barbell presses, obviously for the right people, if they've got good movement with that and they're not creating compensation. This is how I would do this, okay? So again, pretty straightforward here. Our cyclical work, 30 to 40 minutes, we could do essentially, so let's say there's 30 minutes on the clock, and I want them to do, so he's got a rower, an air bike, and a ski erg. So he could do all three of those. And then every 10 minutes, he's going to get off of whatever piece he was on. So let's just say he was on the air bike. He's going to get off the air bike and he's going to do 20 air squats, 20 hollow rocks, and maybe 20 double unders with a jump rope. This guy's got a CrossFit background, probably have no problem doing that. So he's going to get off. He's going to every 10 minutes, which is essentially 3 sets. This keeps it interesting. So it's not just straight up cyclical work, right? Turkish get up is going to be 3 times 1 each with 60 seconds rest. 3 sets of 1. Very straightforward. Speed pull deadlift, 8 sets of 3 at 40%. And I'm going to assume he can use accommodating resistance. So we'll go 30% of either, in this case, let's just say band, because most likely he'll be able to use band. And that's going to be a 90-second rest. Now, people often, with accommodating based resistance, people often labor over the percentage. I don't want that to happen. I want it to be just use some. If you can't use 30%, don't worry about it. Don't worry about measuring it. I'm assuming because he's been training so long and just his background to training that this will be no problem to set up. He probably has the ability to do that in his rack at his gym. Again, we're going to assume because we don't know specifically what they have. Well equipped could mean he's got a deadlift platform with band setup and he can easily set this up. So 3 sets of 12 to 15. I like a lot of different versions of hip thrusts. I love using accommodating base resistance, so like a banded hip thrust for higher rep sets, but of course you could use a barbell too. The glutes do respond really well to higher volume, a lot of slow twitch muscle fiber. Lateral squat would go with 3 sets of 8 to 10 with 60 seconds rest. And then anti-extension could be a stir the pot, and we go 3 times 10 seconds each direction with 60 seconds rest. All right, so last day, or our speed upper day, we're gonna do a superset of landmine rotation to press. We're gonna do 5 times 2 each, rest 30 seconds, and then plyo push-ups. It's gonna be 5 times 3, rest 30 seconds. So a superset of speed work. Chin-up variation is gonna be 5 by 5 with 60 seconds rest. And then let's say this is a close grip bench. I'm just gonna put this in here so we know. If I'm using a 5 by 5, I wanna make sure I have the right pattern. And in this case, bilateral will be a better option. Of course, you could go with a dumbbell variation, dumbbell press. Maybe you bump this up to 5 sets of 10. But again, just for the sake of argument. And then anti-rotation, let's say 3 sets of 8 to 10 each. This could be rope. This could be a pal-off press variation. Number of different things you could go with there. And then on our final day, we could do something similar. Or maybe he just does 10-minute bike, 10-minute ski, 10-minute row at a conversational. Okay, so let's just recap what we've done here. We're going to bias strength training. This guy wants to gain strength. We're going to do this for 12 weeks. We're going to follow this split for 12 weeks unless something goes wrong in that first 4 weeks. Based on what I have here, I would say that there's a pretty good chance that this will play out very well. Now, is he going to lose any aerobic fitness? Probably not. I would say that as long as we're prior, he's still hitting these conditioning days, he's going to be good to go. Now, over time, I would probably go back to that 3-3 split where we do 3 full body days, 3 conditioning. And if he's training every day, maybe he does a 4th conditioning day. That would certainly be a viable option then. But for now, wanting to gain strength, prioritizing a more of a conjugate-based split would definitely be a good direction to go. And, you've got some freedom here with exercise selection. So this is how I would proceed. The progression would be we run cluster sets. I would run cluster sets for 12 weeks, and I would vary the variation. So front squat, floor press, I would vary that every 3rd week. I would do a different variation. 3 to 4 weeks. Cluster sets actually work better on a 4-week wave where people can build a little bit slower. Speed work, I would vary, again, same thing, every 3 to 4 weeks. Depending on, if this is a guy that's super type A and likes a ton of variability, I'd probably stay with 3 weeks. If he's less type A and he can deal with having the same variation a little bit longer, 4 weeks with this stuff will reap a little bit more benefits because you can actually build it up a little bit slower. And usually I find that on that week 3, people still have a lot more in the tank than I'd like them to have. And that 4th week allows them to really push what these cluster sets are. So that's how I would proceed. I would change those variations every 3 to 4 weeks. And then the progression would be just, going towards the higher end of the rep scheme. Again, super simple. Changing the exercise selection, same thing every 3 to 4 weeks. But I would keep this split. A heavy lower, a heavy upper, a speed lower and upper. With 3 conditioning days, this would probably be more of my optional day, get it in if you can. But this is going to give him a really nice balance of where he's at, where his metrics are at, where his equipment is at, where his goals are at. And it gives him a nice balance of training in the sense that there's enough here to keep things interesting, but also keep him moving forward and be able to see these strength numbers come up. And, you know, even his strength endurance, that stuff should improve using this training split. So guys, this is the first of many videos. Stay tuned for many more. We're going to be delving into a lot of different training splits. And, you know, if you're on my mailing list, hopefully you saw that email. If you didn't, look for future emails, because we're going to be doing this in a few different ways, not just me writing the program. I'm going to do some breakdowns of the program that people submit to me. So a lot of great stuff to unpack, and I'm excited to do many more of these. See you on the next video.